Hi Tribe. Thank you so much for being so understanding about me not being able to post some videos recently. I've dedicated all of my energy outside of teaching to my cat who has large cell lymphoma. So I've been doing things with that, trying to get her, comfortable at least and in remission. And the whole experience isn't without its magical moments and gifts, and I just wanted to share that with you because it's basically forcing me to be a yogi about the whole thing. A little backstory. She was diagnosed with large cell lymphoma back in mid-January during her first hospitalization. At the time, she had stopped eating and was really lethargic, hence the hospitalization. After they had put her on steroids and tried some treatments to kind of make her comfortable, they allowed her to come home with me because she started eating. However, during that time, she had stopped eating, and I had to admit her back. During the time of her hospitalization, I was recommended to a chi master since, chemotherapy was basically not really looking like a good option for her because she had lost so much weight and had stopped eating. It would just kind of make her life miserable. So, I called the chi master to see if I could schedule an appointment with him, and he said he'd get back to me. In the meantime, I got to take my cat home, and I ended up taking her to another hospital because she continued to not eat and wasn't drinking any water. And in between that time, I had been trying to do it myself and trying to, give her food and through syringe feeding. So basically, when I went to that second hospital, they told me that it was it. And I had a choice where I could either put her down or I could, take her back home, try to make her as comfortable as possible. But they told me that she basically didn't have very much longer to be with me. So I had to make a decision, and I told that hospital I would call them back as to whether I would, put her to sleep or if I would take her home. And during that time, my family came to an agreement that we were going to put her down because we don't want her to suffer. And that seemed to be the kindest option. So I called the hospital back, and I guess it must have been really busy for them because the doctor didn't call me back till later on that evening. But right before they had called, it was so crazy because right before they called, literally seconds, the chi master called me back and agreed to meet with me 2 days from then. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting about this whole thing was that, in between the time she came home from her first hospitalization to the time that, I got the call from this chi master, what happened was I had exhausted myself, trying to find ways of, trying to support her and trying to get her to survive. I was syringe feeding her homemade cat food that I was blending and going out and buying ingredients and trying to figure out different ways to make it appealing to her. I was also giving her medicine, 3-4 times a day, because she was on 5 different medications, and it was a lot for her and for me. So, by the time we got to that place where we agreed, my family and I had agreed that we were going to put her down, it almost was like I needed to go through that in order to be able to surrender to whatever was going to happen. And me surrendering to the idea that okay, this is, it for her, and this is the kindest decision. Maybe that left space for me to get out of the way, out of, maybe something else needing to happen. So it was a very strange coincidence that the chi master actually called me literally seconds before the hospital called me so I could give them my decision as to whether I was going to take her home or, put her down that evening. The second thing about this whole surrender experiment was interesting. I think because I've tried to get myself out of the way, it also has allowed space for other things to happen. For example, we're clearly going this holistic route. I've taken her to a chi master and have seen amazing improvements. She's completely off of all of her medication. The doctor at the last hospital pretty much took her off of everything aside from appetite stimulants and steroids to make her more comfortable. But pretty much since her first chi balancing session, I've gotten to witness a lot of like little things that you usually don't appreciate, right? So I've seen her eyes starting to brighten and for life to start coming back into her. She started to want to eat. She started asking for food, you know, and actually finishing her food, which has been amazing. Her appetite's increased. She started going to the bathroom again because she started eating. You know, I think my journey and part in this whole thing is being able to surrender to whatever is going to happen, is for me to actually be a real yogi about the whole thing and having to stay present with her and assessing every day, you know, like, how is she doing? Is she doing well? And not allowing my ego try to project whether she's going to get better, which I really do hope she does, but that would be a really bad thing for her if I attached myself to that, you know, and tried to keep her going longer than she is meant to, you know, if it is her time. And it makes me very grateful, like, every day that I see these really small improvements that you usually would, you know, just kind of gloss over and take for granted. Like, all of the little improvements, all of the little things that she does, it's just amazing to watch. And I'm so happy and so relieved every time I see these things, you know, especially because they're not something to be taken for granted, because she can, you know, just as easily swing back the other way. It's been really interesting seeing my family, who's not the most emotionally verbal people, expressing words of love, and it might be cultural, isn't really something that we do, you know? So the way that we express love is through our actions. So it's been really nice to see everybody being able to support each other, being able to watch her, being able to take turns with like cleaning her and feeding her and, you know, doing all of these things to help support her also helps support each other. So it's really nice to see us all working towards a common goal and actively being very invested. I suppose on a bigger scale, you know, regardless of what ends up happening, whether, you know, her cancer goes into remission or it doesn't, it seemingly is another exercise in being able to navigate some of the difficult things that life presents to you, and being able to see the gifts that are involved even when you're in the storm. It's much easier to be able to detach from a situation when it's happened in the past or when it's not happening to you. So, you know, this was a good exercise and is still a current ongoing exercise in being able to find the sweet moments and, you know, try to have some perspective on the whole situation. You know, even though these situations don't feel great, especially because you're in the middle of it, it doesn't mean you don't pay attention to the little things and those little magical moments that are still happening. I think it's important to be able to pay attention and notice some of the subtleties of these moments and how magical they are, and to be present to them. Thanks so much for watching. Stay well and weird. Bye.